at some point you don't know what the future is going to be. And so you got to decide, is what I'm holding on to right now what I want, or do I want to kind of take this leap of faith and join hands and all jump off together?
Welcome to Drop and Give Me 20, where you learn keys to entrepreneurial success as Lindsey Germono interviews business owners with military backgrounds on what works and what doesn't. Listen as they focus on the stories, both challenges and wins, that military entrepreneurs have faced in growing their businesses.
Thanks for joining Drop and Give Me 20. This is a two-part series. You just heard from Lauren and Amy with GoMillie. And what we are doing today is showcasing kind of the behind the scenes with the founders of Millie. So I'm very excited about this two-part series. If you haven't listened to the first one, please do so. You can go to dropandgiveme20podcast.com to listen to Lauren and Amy's interview. And today we have Ken Robbins and Jason Dempsey. Good morning. Well, good afternoon, I should say. Ken and Jason, how are you guys?
Great. Thanks for having us, Lindsey.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. It's going well. Thank you. So I want to jump right into it. Ken, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Millie?
Yeah, sure. So I am a 20-year Army veteran. So I left the Army in just the end of 2014. My kind of background in the Army was I had spent 20 years kind of doing what a lot of folks do, going all over the world, deployments, et cetera. My last couple jobs, I was privileged enough to be a battalion commander of a unit over in Europe. And then my very last job in the Army, I was a speechwriter to the Chief of Staff of the Army at the time, who was General Odierno. And so after a 20-year career, I decided that I wanted to retire. We really wanted to stay put here in the Northern Virginia, DC area. And I started looking for what was next and decided I wanted to head kind of down the entrepreneur route. So that's a little bit about me, and I'll let Jason introduce himself.
Yeah, hi, Lindsey. This is Jason. Similar to Ken, we overlapped quite a bit during our careers and have known each other for quite a while. I spent just over 22 years as an infantry officer in the Army. I had a few eclectic assignments in addition to regular infantry jobs and deployments. Ended my career here in DC as well, first with a fellowship, and then later ended up after my last trip to Afghanistan in the office of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, kind of helping him navigate military, family, and veteran outreach issues. And so at the end of that 22 years, I was hanging out with Ken, and we decided to take the leap.
So were you guys stationed, were you guys in Nova at the same time then?
Yeah, we've been actually stationed together several times. So Jason and I, what's interesting, we were both cadets at West Point together at the same time. And then, about 10 or 11 years into our career, when we were both captains, we both got selected to go back and teach at West Point in the same department. So we were there together teaching cadets. And then we both wound up here in DC at the Pentagon at the same time, right at the tail end of our career. So our careers have kind of overlapped, and we've known each other for the better part of, I guess now it's like over 20 years, probably closer to like 24 years.
And now you guys are working together. So it's
now
different.
we're business partners. Exactly.
Right. So we heard from Lauren and Amy about how they felt when you guys approached them with the idea of purchasing their entity and then rolling up under Millie. So what I'd love to do is give listeners some of that background on how you two came to that point where you approached Lauren and Amy with this opportunity.
Sure. I guess I'll just start briefly. So first of all, whatever Lauren and Amy said, I'm sure is not true. So we'll tell you the real deal now. But,
well, actually, they told me to not say this, so I'm sure Amy's going to get me. They've said that you guys can be a little competitive, and Jason in particular with some promotions that you guys had going out on maybe social media. So they're going to be looking at listenership to see which one is highest. Yeah. So you guys better bring it in. I mean, you guys
do. We have some internal competitions on whose videos get more views and things like that. So.
It's on.
Yeah, which of course Jason and I are a distinct advantage since 93% of military spouses are women, and so and that's our target market. So they'd much rather hear from other military spouses than from us. So they have a built-in advantage. But the kind of what happened, and so I'll give you a little, maybe it will help if I give a little background on what Jason, so when Jason and I started this, it was we started as Agent Hero, and that's what's the first brand that we kind of came up with. And the idea was to help empower veteran and military spouse real estate agents. And a lot of that had been driven by the fact that my wife was a real estate agent, and I, we noticed that a lot of her clients were military, and there was a connection there, and we wanted to explore that. And then shortly into it, I got introduced to Military Property Project, and specifically Lauren, not surprisingly through those military connections you have. So it just turned out that an officer that had been a lieutenant for me when I was a captain, later on was a commander, and Lauren's wife was a lieutenant under him. And so his spouse made me aware of Lauren and Military Property Project. And I immediately loved what they were doing. And I really liked Lauren when we had our first kind of initial conversations. And we did some marketing stuff together between us and them. And then in kind of the middle of last year, Jason and I were meeting with one of our advisors, and we really decided we wanted to pivot the company and make it we didn't want to just narrowly focus on the real estate aspect of what we were doing. We wanted to really go after the larger kind of PCS space and what military families have to deal with the entire moving process, and recognize that Agent Hero as a brand wasn't going to capture that. So we started a rebranding and renaming process that would eventually lead to Millie. But as we shortly into that process, it became apparent to us that, we needed some folks that had some different experiences and had done some different things. And so immediately Jason and I saw in Lauren and Amy, tremendous entrepreneurs themselves, had started this great company. We're already doing stuff in the space, and we realized they were going to be immediately value add. And to build the brand the way we wanted to build it, we just saw a lot of synergies that if we could bring them on board and make them part of our team, that we thought like we could just go well above and beyond anything we could kind of imagine just doing ourselves.
Jason, did it go down that way?
Yeah, I mean, it did. It made sense. It was one of those things that's kind of inevitable, right? Because think about members of the military, whether you're a vet, a spouse, or serving currently yourself, it is a unique tribe and community. And so we knew we were trying to reach out and create something authentic for the military community. And really, they offered a complementary voice to the veteran perspective and a means of speaking directly with those who are most affected by military moves, which is traditionally the spouse, right? The spouse carries most of the move, and most military spouses are women. So there's a need for kind of that authenticity in language to build a brand that we really care about.
So when you guys approached Lauren and Amy, and you guys, I guess, had this negotiation process where you're trying to figure out how things would shake out, really on who's buying what, who's doing what happened with you guys? I mean, what was your impression when you were working in that space with Amy and Lauren? Was that difficult, or was that easy for you guys to do?
I mean, it was so I should start by saying it's anytime we're in the middle of this right now with our company and working to some business deals and investments and things of that nature. So anytime you're approaching another company especially about buying their company, it's never going to be an easy process because they built something, in Amy and Lauren's case, they built MPP, they built it from scratch, right? They'd taken an idea, ran with that idea, and built it from scratch. So part of what we did as we approached the process was, we had a couple things in mind. One was we wanted to show them kind of the synergies that we could create together, and and how what they had started could become so much bigger and maybe even huger than they could have ever imagined. And that we could combine the right, we had the right kind of resources. We had the right contacts. They had great ideas. They had great thoughts on things. And so showing that this could actually be a great value proposition for both of us. So we were trying to make sure that, for early on, that they understood that, we wanted to build this together with them and make this much bigger. The other thing is we early on too recognized that we didn't really want MPP, Military Property Project, for the site itself. We wanted Lauren and Amy. I mean, so for us, the value that we saw was getting Lauren and Amy on board and making them part of this bigger thing that would become Millie. because we recognized their talents immediately. So it wasn't just about getting military property project. Like we had to ensure that in getting that, we also got Lauren and Amy as part of it, because their involvement with us we thought was really important, going to be very key to whatever we were going to do in the future.
Right.
Yeah, no, it absolutely was. And, part of it, when you take a big leap like that, and it's actually paradoxically, right, the company you want is the company that has people who believe in the mission and are committed to what they're doing. Well, that also makes it harder to negotiate around that company, right? Because somebody who's willing to walk away or undervalue or just take your negotiating principles at face value is probably somebody who really hasn't put a lot of emotion into an endeavor. So it really takes a while to show that there's trust, and it can never be a win-lose proposition. So it did not take long. We worked it such that I wouldn't call them trust building exercises, but our efforts to work together to build the Millie brand. Even before we had fully incorporated or bought their company, just kind of showed that we were all kind of on the same page and we could work together, which I think made it easier to take that final step.
But Jason's point, I think, is really important, which is in the end, though, you do have to, there is a little bit of you got to join hands and kind of jump off the cliff together, if you will. And so there came a point in negotiation, and I think Lauren and Amy probably echoed that. I think they would agree that, at some point you don't know what the future is going to be. And so you got to decide, is what I'm holding on to right now what I want, or do I want to kind of take this leap of faith and join hands and all jump off together? And that's very much what we wanted it to be. We wanted them to feel like, they weren't taking neither one of us were taking all the risks. We were all taking risks simultaneously by doing this, but that we were all going to benefit from it if it goes the way we hope it will go. And we really wanted them to feel like that, we valued what they had built and what they were bringing in.
So, and something that I want to ask, and maybe we might take a second to think on it, but what would have happened if it went south or not in the way that, you and that Ken and Jason had intended it to go, or maybe Lauren and Amy weren't happy? So did you guys have an exit strategy, or if setting expectations on, if this doesn't work out, this is what we're going to do. If this goes south, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think it's in all things business and life that you got to approach it transparently and in good faith. And if you do that, it's not, the nice thing about business is if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And that's okay, right? You only work with the people that make sense to, and it's a big world. So if it doesn't make sense, no hard feelings, you move on. And so it's, had it gone south, it wouldn't have gone south for any lack of respect or appreciation for what the other was trying to do. It just wouldn't have made sense business-wise. And, that's a fairly rational piece of, that's an expectation that you have when you're looking at a business proposition.
Yeah, I don't think we really kind of approached it from a, what if this doesn't work? Because I think what would have probably happened is we likely would have continued to do some type of business together. And then, we would have probably figured out some other arrangement to be able to do that. And then, and who knows, maybe would have ended up having these discussions maybe later on down the road. But our thought was we were kind of moving forward in this general direction. We were going to continue to move in that direction. But, for us, it was, we just feel like we'd have a lot more value having them on board and having them be part of this. And so really it's about just finding what is, important to the other side to make sure that they feel that same way and they feel like they're getting value out of the deal. And like Jason said, I learned a long time ago, you don't ever question people's motives when you go into these things. So when people feel the way they do, you don't take them anything other than that's the way they feel, and you don't question their motives or assume their motives are somehow bad. And so I think because of that, we had a very open, honest dialogue through the whole process, and eventually got to a place where where both sides were comfortable with what we were doing and what we were, hoping to do in the future.
Okay, well, you guys have been so kind and spoken so highly of Amy and Lauren. I am sure that you guys are going to win this whose episode is listened to more. So I think whether that's intentional or not, it's very nice of you guys to say. And it's really helpful for those that are listening to understand that you've got to have that heart in it and then approach it with respect. So the other thing I wanted to, while we're kind of wrapping up or coming to a close is, there are listeners here that are veterans that might be in the same kind of entrepreneurial mind that you guys are in. Do you guys have any tips or advice for them when it comes to taking that leap or taking that jump and doing it? And I'll start with you, Ken. What piece of advice, if you could, give to any veteran on entrepreneurship, what would that be?
Yeah, I talk for, and I think Jason could too. We have lots of lessons we've learned. But my biggest advice, I think I'd give folks is, if you're thinking about doing it, you should do it if you can, if you have the capacity to do it. And what I mean by that is, it's a big decision. Being an entrepreneur comes with, comes a great deal of rewards potentially, but it also has a lot of risks. Mm-hmm. And so, especially for folks that have families, you've got to sit down and really talk through that and what the pros and cons are and the implications of doing this. But if you can have that conversation with your spouse, if you can get to a point where you think this is something you can do from a financial standpoint, from a family standpoint, then I highly encourage you to do it, because you don't get to do these things very often. And so if you have a burning desire to be an entrepreneur and you have an idea and you want to pursue it, you should, because you can always revert back to, there's always jobs out there you can find. There's always work you can do. And so you shouldn't let that kind of hold you back if you have the capacity to do it, if it's something you want to do.
Nice. Jason?
I would say, for one, network and learn. I'm the first champion of veterans and military spouses when I'm talking to civilian communities. But what I caveat that by saying that you can't just assume that you've got it all in the bag just because you're a veteran or military spouse and have developed unique skill sets over 20 years. You still have to learn about an industry. You still have to be very humble in what you're doing, and you really have to go out of your way to learn and get beat up a little bit to make sure that your ideas are valid, your processes, your systems, and that what you're actually setting up has some legs, because there's no charity or giveaway in the business world. Either what you're doing makes sense and makes money, or it doesn't. And people will say, hey, great effort, veteran, but they're not going to that doesn't mean they're going to give you their money. So you really have to be humble and willing really to reinvent and to learn something completely new. But by the same token, another, in my process in doing this, a great thing that another veteran entrepreneur told me was that all uncertainty is not risk. It is okay to not know exactly where you're going to be in a year and a half, or how something's going to shape out, because most of us do have the skill sets to adapt. It's just going to take a little bit of work.
Yeah, and I would just add like a practical kind of application to what Jason was saying is, one of the things him and I did, which I'm very glad we did, is before we decided to do this, we went around and spoke to folks that were in the industry and had experience and knew a lot about at least the business we were going into. And we pitched the idea to them. And I told every person we pitched to, like, tell me why this is the dumbest idea you've ever heard of, mm-hmm. or tell me why you don't think this will work. So I felt like we had done some homework in terms of preparing ourselves. And I would encourage folks to do that. Like, go out and talk to people. Don't be one of those folks that you're, I got the biggest idea, and if I tell somebody, they're going to steal it. That's not the reality. People want to help you. They want to see you succeed, but talk to people that have knowledge in the industry you're going into and see if what their thoughts are on it, so that you're not just kind of jumping off into the unknown. You're starting from a point of at least having some practical knowledge about the profession or the field you're entering into and what kind of the current landscape is.
I love it. Thank you guys for that. And as we're wrapping up, if anybody wants to reach out to you, give us give us some handles. How do we get in contact with you, Ken? And
yes. So the best way is to go to our site, and it's www.GoMillie. So GoMillie.com. And on the site, it's got if you want to reach out and contact us directly, there's a contact link on there. You can send us a note. And then that's got all of our resources and all of our tools about our company and about what we do for military families in terms of helping them with the PCS process. So we always love to get feedback from folks and get their thoughts on the site and how we can make it better, because that's what it's there for. It's there to serve, you all in the military community and help relieve a little bit of that stress and anxiety. When your service member comes home with that piece of paper saying this has never been before and don't know anything about it, that's where we can help. So
wonderful. And so if everyone's listening, if they didn't catch that, GoMillie.com, GoMillie. We had Ken Robbins and Jason Dempsey on the call today. Thank you so much for your service and for your time and putting together a really helpful platform for us fellow military spouses, when that is very stressful when we get that piece of paper. So thank you guys so much for your time on Drop and Give Me 20. And everyone listening, please go to GoMillie.com to learn more and connect further with Ken and Jason. Thanks for listening to Drop and Give Me 20, brought to you by Germono Advertising Company in Norfolk, Virginia. Please visit our podcast in iTunes, click on subscribe, and leave us a review. Your support goes a long way. When you subscribe and leave reviews, it helps the guests on our show as well. Jump in and let us know what you think. You can also follow all of our guests on the Drop and Give Me 20 Facebook page. We have Instagram and Twitter. Those handles are Give Me 20 Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey Germono, and I appreciate you listening to the show.